Good evening. Welcome to the presentation. This presentation is on how to stay on track for college athletics. My name is Matthew Wicks. I'm the supervisor for athletics for Pasco County Schools. We're going to go over a lot of information, and at the end of the presentation, there will be a question and answer period where you can ask questions. All right, the first slide we're going to talk about tonight is the plan basically for when you start ninth grade. So really it all begins here. This is when you should start planning to, number one, work as hard as you can in the classroom and earn the best possible grades. We're going to get into a little bit about what a core course GPA means, but it does start now, and those are we'll talk about core courses in a little bit. The other piece too, when planning out your course schedules over the 4 years of high school, you want to make sure that you're taking NCAA approved courses. This is important because if for some reason you end up wanting to go, or you end up having the opportunity to play at the Division I level, if you take a course that's not NCAA approved, it won't count towards your GPA according to the school that's trying to give you a scholarship or some type of grant aid or something like that. So that information is easily found. Your guidance counselor at your school has that information, or you can find that information on the NCAA Eligibility Center, which we'll go over soon. The other piece is you want to, if you plan on taking financial algebra, just check the Pasco County list. It is not approved in Pasco County through the NCAA, so you might want to take another math course. Obviously, Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, Algebra 1A and Algebra 1B. It's an example of 1 year that Algebra 1A is 0.5 core. So obviously, if you did 1A and then 1B, you can get that core. So that's ninth grade. So 10th grade is a little bit different. You want to make sure, obviously you always want to stay on track. I think that's through any grade we talk about. You always want to stay on track. But if you fall behind in courses, you don't want to take any shortcuts to catch back up. You just want to make sure you talk to your counselor, and then they can make sure they find you some approved courses or programs you can take to make sure that if you set back and get a D or an F in a class, you want to make sure you retake that class fully, so you can get a grade replacement and not necessarily a makeup grade. So those are things that you want to think about. And also, there's some, you can start thinking about registering for the clearinghouse now, but you really, when we talk about the clearinghouse, we can get into that a little bit more. So the main thing about 10th grade is just focusing on staying on track and start thinking about ACT and SAT time to start taking those tests as well as studying for those tests. So that 11th grade year is really when you should check with your counselor and really make sure that you're on track to graduate on time and you have the right amount of core courses. So that's super important, just because, as schools are going to start doing the recruiting process, they will ask for your transcript. They will make sure that you're on track to graduate in the right amount of time and you're having the right amount of courses. This is also the time, the 11th grade year, is when you want to start thinking about taking the ACT or the SAT or both. Just remember, when you do take the ACT or SAT, you want to make sure that you always send your scores to the NCAA Eligibility Center, and that is code 9999. Always code that in. That way your scores are automatically sent to the NCAA Center, and you can have that you can have that posted in your eligibility profile. That way that the schools know exactly what your scores are. And then obviously at the end of the year, once you register for that eligibility center, you want to upload your official transcripts into the clearinghouse. That way, and there's a registration fee. We'll go over that in a little bit too, but you just want to make sure you upload all that information in once you finish your 11th grade year. So as you enter the 12th grade year, you want to make sure this is kind of like the wrap-up year. You've kind of been on top of your grades. You've been on top of your courses. Everything that you've taken is NCAA approved. And now you're taking your final, few core courses that are required for graduation and NCAA eligibility. You also want to think about taking the ACT or SAT again if necessary, if your scores aren't really what you want them to be, or you've done some test prep since the last time you took them. But you definitely want to take, if you need to take them again, now's the time to get it done early in your 12th grade year. And then when you're done, as you move towards, if you're going to early enroll, or if you're a fall enrollee, early enrollment means that you would graduate in December and then enroll in college in January. We do have students that do that. If you do that, you want to ask for your amateurization certification on October 1st. And then for fall enrollees, then you would want it by April 1st. And what that's saying is that amateurization certification is just saying that you are a high school athlete and you've never been paid to play or taken some type of paid sponsorship for playing athletics or something like that. So those are things that you cannot do to be eligible for the NCAA. And then, of course, after you graduate, you want to get with your guidance counselor and make sure that they'll upload your final transcripts and your proof of graduation to the Eligibility Center. That way the school of choice can see it, and all that information is put in there for them to use for your enrollment. So this slide kind of talks to you a little bit about, your 12th grade year and after you graduate. And this really has to do with the Eligibility Center. So once you've graduated and your counselors uploaded your final transcript, with proof of graduation to the NCAA Eligibility Center, this is really for where your those Division I schools and Division II schools in NCAA, you have to be on their institutional request list to receive a certification. So if you think you're getting recruited by a school, the way to really know is if you ask them if you're on their institutional request list. If they say yes, then you're truly getting recruited by them. If they say no, then that means that they have interest in you, but they're not truly considering giving you an offer or basically seeing if you would fit for them academically. Or I would say maybe even they're just not as serious as you think they are. So that's just something to think about. But anyway, this is just something to know that when you'll receive that request list for that certification 12th grade year. All right, the next thing we're going to start talking about is we're going to talk about when to register for the clearinghouse. You should register for the clearinghouse when you are actively being recruited by a school. So once you've asked them if you're on their IRL and they say yes, then you can go ahead and register for the clearinghouse. Just simply receiving letters in the mail from a school is not being recruited. You really need to be on their IRL to technically be recruited. Also, once you are registered on the Eligibility Center, you will be you'll become an active member on their IRL, and then you'll obviously you need to have that Eligibility Center piece registered. That way, if you are offered an official visit to one of the colleges that you're considering, you will need to have that registration in the Eligibility Center to take that official visit. And then the school that's recruiting you will ask you for your NCAA ID number. That way they can add you based off the number that you have once you register on the Eligibility Center. When you register on the NCAA clearinghouse, there are two types of accounts. The first account you can look for and create is a profile page. And these are for students that are undecided, and also for Division III students. There's no fee associated with a profile page. And the nice thing about a profile page is you can convert it to a certification account at any time. And on that profile page, you'll have account information, school history. You just don't put anything about sports. And you will not receive an academic or amateurization certification on a profile page. You do have to convert to a certification account to get that information. Once you convert to a certification account, those are for Division I and Division II students. It is, like I said, it is a $90 fee. Some schools, or if your student is on free and reduced lunch, you can qualify for a waiver for a certification account. And you would just need to talk to your guidance counselor about that waiver. And then international students are $150 for their account. And just like the profile page, the certification account, you'll have account information, school and sports history, And then you have to have that certification account to sign a national letter of intent on signing day to a Division I or Division II school. And you'll need that certification account to go on an official visit to a Division I or Division II school. So those are the two types of accounts you can have on the NCAA Clearinghouse. So once you click on the web page and you go to the Academic Eligibility Center, you're going to click Apply. You're going to go to the Eligibility, then you're going to go to the Eligibility Center. You're going to create a new account at the bottom of the screen. You're going to click on Create an Account, and then you're going to use an email address that you check regularly to create your account. And then the NCAA will send you instructions on how to complete your registration process. Next part of the presentation, we're going to dive a little bit more into initial eligibility requirements and what those requirements are for a Division I or Division II school or a Division III school in the NCAA. All right, let's talk a little about what is a core course. So a core course is something that qualifies you for high school graduation in one or more of the following areas. So your English, your math, natural and physical sciences, social sciences, foreign language, some type of religion or philosophy class. So these are considered four-year college preparatory courses. They have to be taught at a regular high school academic level. And for math courses, that level needs to be at Algebra 1 or higher for core for college. The other requirement is they are taught by a qualified teacher. That's why any course you take has to be taught by a certified teacher in that subject area. And then if you need your school's list of NCAA-approved courses, you can go onto eligibilitycenter.org/course list, and you can find your school's approved course code. So just one section I want to talk to you a little bit about. This next section here is before you take a non-traditional course. So non-traditional course is something that is different from just going to school and taking like a science class from a teacher second period at your school. So there's some things you need to consider with a non-traditional course. So let's say, for instance, you get a D or an F in one of your core courses, you need to make it up. So we do have a platform in Pasco County called Apex, but Apex is not an approved platform for the NCAA. So you would want to retake that course through FLVS or Pasco eSchool, and you want to make sure that is if you take it through those two platforms, it will be approved. Unfortunately, if you take it through Apex, it will not be approved. But any non-traditional course outside of Pasco, you just want to make sure that it must include ongoing access between the instructor and the students. It must have a defined period of time for completion, for example, like an 8-week course, 10-week course, whatever. And then you want to make sure that you review that toolkit. There's an NCAA toolkit that you can talk to, or you can look up different information about homeschooling, if your student's homeschooled or have been homeschooled in the past, if you're already in high school. So you want to make sure that those are being met, those non-traditional or taking online courses are being met and are NCAA compliant. So the next slide talks about your core course time limitation. So you do have a time limitation on taking these courses. The time you enter ninth grade, you have 4 years or 8 semesters to complete your core course requirements for NCAA Division I. If you fail to complete high school on time in 8 semesters, core courses taken after the 8th semester will not be counted towards your NCAA academic eligibility requirement. And on time also means if your high school graduation takes place on June 1st, then you must graduate on June 1st. If you do not graduate June 1st with the rest of your high school, you have not completed the requirements on time. So for Division II, it's a little bit different. You are permitted to use all core courses completed from 9th grade year until the time you enroll full-time at a college or university. So Division II is just a little bit different. Obviously, Division I has a little stricter requirement. So as I mentioned before, we do have what we call early academic qualifiers. So a lot of what that means is you've qualified early for your clearinghouse, otherwise, or you've qualified early to graduate early. So you may qualify to graduate in December, and then enroll at your college in January for spring semester. So a lot of Division I athletes will do this periodically, depending on what sport or school they're going to. So students who meet the criteria after 6 semesters will be certified as qualifiers. So Division I, SAT minimum 900, or some ACT score 75 on the ACT, or core course GPAs 3.0 or higher at a minimum, and already have a minimum of 14 core courses. So you already have 3 Englishes, 2 math, 2 science, 2 additional core in English, math, or science, and 5 additional core courses in any area. For D2, the SAT minimum combined of 1,000, or a minimum ACT sum score of 85, and then your core course GPA of 3.0 or higher at a minimum of 12 courses. So 3 English, 2 math, 2 science, and 5 additional courses in each area. This slide shows you a little bit about that Division I requirement for core course requirements. So this is what you have to have in those 8 semesters. To be eligible for NCAA, you have to have 4 years of English. You have to have 3 years of math, Algebra 1 or higher, 2 years of a natural or physical science, 1 year of a lab if offered by the high school, and 1 year of additional English, math, or natural science, physical science, 2 years of social science, and then 4 years of additional courses, anything in the above, or foreign language, or some type of religion or philosophy class. So this slide talks a little bit about the summary of changes. So in the recent years, we did have a few changes. It is now the minimum core course GPAs to be a qualifier is a 2.3 is the minimum requirement. That did change. It used to be 2.0, now it's a 2.3. That changed in the last couple of years. 10 core courses are required before the beginning of senior year, and these courses are locked. 7 of 10 core courses must be in the areas of English, math, and science. So you have some of these things that you're required to do before your senior year, and what courses you have to take within certain areas. So hopefully this helps. So as the previous slide stated, there's the 10 core, and they get locked. So what that means is at the start of the 7th semester, basically you can't repeat once you take those 10 core courses, they're locked. So if you don't do well in one, you need to replace it before that 7th semester, because once you hit that 7th semester, those grades will count and they're locked to meet that initial eligibility requirement for competition. So students who do not meet the core course progression requirements can still be made eligible to receive athletic aid and practice the initial year of enrollment by meeting academic redshirt requirements. So a school may bring you in and make you an academic redshirt because you're a non-qualifier, and then you'll have a year to become a qualifier, and then you basically won't play or do anything with the team. You'll just practice, go to class, and then be basically an academic redshirt, and then your sophomore year you would be considered eligible to participate in contests. So let's talk a little bit about being a Division I qualifier and being eligible, right off the bat to basically receive athletic aid or a scholarship, practice, and compete in competitions. So you must complete those 10 core courses before the 7th semester of high school, and then we talked about the red shirt if you don't, and then if those 10 core courses must be completed, 7 of them must be in the areas of English, math, and science. And those 10 core courses become selected for the purpose of GPA calculations, so that's why it's locked. And if you repeat any of those courses, you can't be used after that 7th semester begins. So that's why your first 3 years of high school are the most important towards NCAA qualification. Here's a quick summary of if you're going to compete at the Division II level. Here's your 16 core, 3 years of English, 2 years of math, Algebra 1 or higher, 2 years of sciences, 3 years of additional English, math, or from natural physical sciences, 2 years of social science, and 4 years of additional courses, any of the above areas, or foreign language, or a religion or philosophy class. So NCAA requirements are very similar, just a slight variation. So at the Division II level, obviously you still need to meet those 16 core courses. The minimum GPA is a 2.2, so not a 2.3 like at the Division I level. And then you can have better in core courses, and you have to earn that minimum SAT ACT score that matches the 16 core course GPA in full. It's like a sliding scale that I'll show you in a little bit, but there's a sliding scale based off your GPA and your test score numbers that can make you a qualifier. So what that means is if you have a high GPA and a low test score, that balances out versus or if you have a really high score on your test and you have a lower GPA, that balances out as well. So here's some information, just kind of talking about it again. When you take your ACT or your SAT, if you're going to play athletics, and if you're aspiring to play athletics in college, make sure you use that 9999 code when registering, so you can send those scores to the NCAA Eligibility Center, and obviously those test scores will be used, and because if you just have your test score on your high school transcripts, those will not be used. You have to send the scores directly from the test to the NCAA to get those to make those scores eligible. So Division III is a little bit different. Here's their requirements. So basically, they're not less. It's just Division III is dependent on the university or college that you're looking to attend. So there's no uniform set of eligibility requirements for Division III. It's basically just per the institution requirements. So if you get into that school, you get in. You can participate in Division III. So it's not like Division I where you have that 16 core courses type thing. So if you're going to Division III school, you don't need Eligibility Center either. So the NCAA Eligibility Center is only for Division I and Division II students. So talking about sports participation with regards to amateurism, once you have that NCAA portal, the NCAA does encourage you to update your sports participation information regularly, and that means like any club teams, tournaments, depending on the sport you play, matches, meets, all those things that you may participate outside of your high school season. It's always important to put those things in there because you don't want to mess up your amateurism certification when the time comes because you played in a tournament or something that wasn't compliant, and that you may receive some type of compensation and so forth. So just making sure you update those regularly is super important, especially when the time comes to get your amateurization certificate. So this just goes over what we talked about before, but this is the final request for amateurization. You've updated it regularly, like we just talked about, but now, then during your senior year, you'll be asked to make sure that all of your sports participation information is complete and accurate, and then you'll be able to request your final amateurization certification to be completed by April 1st for fall enrollees, and then October 1st for spring enrollees. So once you've certified, once you are certified, from an academic and amateur perspective, then you'll be able to practice, compete, and receive financial aid. Athletic aid or scholarship of the institution in which you choose to go to. These are just some learn more informational websites. So here's the NCAA website, www.ncaa.org. The Eligibility Center website is next. There's also a guide for college-bound student athletes that you can find. There's all these things can be found on the NCAA website. Initial eligibility brochure. So some of the slides that I have, I pulled some of that information from that. And then there's also a registration checklist that you can use. And then the number you can always call too if you can't find the information is the number 1-877-626-1496 is the number for the NCAA Eligibility Center. So the next area we're going to go into for playing college athletics is another league of institutions called the NAIA. So it is like a competitor to the NCAA. There's a lot of smaller schools, maybe more rural schools that belong to the NAIA, and they do have other specifications and requirements that you must meet to get into the NAIA. Similar to NCAA, but not quite as difficult. So I'm going to go over some of those, and we're going to do a little comparison between the two. So as you can see, when comparing the NCAA to the NAIA, so NCAA is 1,200 participating schools, where the NAIA is around 300, so obviously a lot smaller. NCAA has 3 divisions, and then NAIA has 2. So NAIA Division 1, NAIA Division 2. And then NCAA sponsors 23 sports, where the NAIA only sponsors 13 sports. But they do have scholarships at both NCAA and NAIA schools, and the NCAA has about 126,000 student athletes, and the NAIA has about half that. So again, you can get scholarships to NAIA schools. It's just a different type of governing body versus NCAA versus NAIA. So just like the NCAA, the NAIA also has their eligibility center that you'll need to register for. And then basically all first-time NAIA participants must register at play.naia.org, and you'll receive an eligible determination prior to participating in any contest, scrimmage, or exhibitions or regular seasons. So theirs is a little bit cheaper, $10 cheaper, and the cost is $80. So they do terms of attendance, they do seasons of competition, academic eligibility, and graduation. They do not, NAIA does not review amateurism, transfer releases, suspensions, things like that, and eligibility certifications. So that's the little bit difference between NAIA and NCAA. But yes, you will still need to register at the NAIA's Eligibility Center to get any type of scholarship or grant and aid from those schools that are in the NAIA. So as you will see as we go through, the NAIA requirements are a little bit less than the NCAA, but nonetheless they still have requirements. So a student is considered an entering freshman until he or she has been identified with a post-secondary institution or higher education with or at least at 2 semesters or 3 quarters. So freshmen must meet 2 out of 3 requirements. Minimum 2.0 GPA, finish in the top half of a student's graduating class. Minimum standardized test score for NAIA is a 16 on the ACT or an 860 on the SAT. So that would be you can do an early determination for students in 6th or 7th semester of high school. So obviously the requirements are a little bit less, but nonetheless they still do have requirements. So a couple of freshman exceptions they do have for the NAIA. The one thing you might want to keep in mind is if your student is homeschooled, The test requirements are 20 ACT and a 950 SAT, and they're going to go under an individualized review by the NAIA's homeschool committee. If your student does have a learning disability, they will need to meet the freshman eligibility requirements, or they can go through an individualized review by the LDAC or the NEC, which is those governing bodies that look over those IEPs and things like that your student might have that could still get them into those NAIA schools. Same thing like the NTA requirement when registering for the ACT or SAT. If you're looking at an NAIA school or potentially think you might be looking at NAIA school, please use the code 9876. That is the code for NAIA and their clearinghouse. So just like the NCAA, test scores on high school transcripts will not be used. You must use that 9876 code. This is just a screenshot from the NAIA portal. You can see where you have an area where you can register and you can make a profile. Again, the registration site is www.playnaia.org. For more information on the NAIA, please visit www.naia.org, and all the information that I presented to you about NAIA is on that website, and you can find all the academic requirements that you need to meet for the NAIA or any school in the NAIA. So the last level of college athletics I wanted to talk to you about was junior college, or some people call it JUCO. But there is a governing body, the National Junior College Athletic Association, and we're going to talk to you a little bit more about what that is in this next section. So a couple of the requirements as a freshman. The nice thing about junior college is you just have to graduate. There's no minimum requirements for a junior college for athletics. And the nice thing about junior college is if you go to a junior college, you can still sign a national letter of intent to go to a four-year school after that junior college if you qualify. So it doesn't necessarily go against your eligibility requirements in a larger, higher institution. So I'll use, for example, a Division I school. You could go to a two-year junior college, participate in athletics at that two-year junior college, and still have eligibility at the next level and sign a national letter of intent to go to a four-year school. Obviously, you're only going to have a couple of years left, but ultimately you're going to get 4 years of college to play athletics. So you'd play 2 years at a junior college and 2 years at a Division I or what we call a four-year school. But obviously you need to meet those requirements. Here's some of the student-athlete eligibility requirements for JUCO. A student-athlete must be a graduate of high school with the State Department of Education approved standard academic diploma, State Department approved general education diploma, or a State Department of Education approved high school equivalency test. So high school graduation is documented with final or official high school transcript, which identifies the school, the student, the date of graduation, and has administrative signature. Student athletes who have passed a state-approved equivalency exam but have not been awarded the certificate or diploma may establish eligibility by submitting written proof of their successful completion and the member institution keeping such proof passing scores in their audit file. So students who enroll in college prior to meeting the minimum requirements shall not be eligible for participation. Additionally, any enrollment that takes place prior to the meeting the minimum requirements shall not be the subject to any accumulation or transfer regulations, provided the entire term takes place prior to the student meeting the requirement. For more information about junior college, visit the National Junior College Athletic Association website. And on that website, you'll find a student-athlete guide to eligibility and a guide to navigating junior colleges across the nation. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of junior colleges across the nation. They're usually clustered in different states and very competitive athletics. So if that's something you're considering, there's a lot of schools out there for you to choose from. So these next few slides, I just wanted to kind of get into a little bit about expectations of playing at the next level. So these are just some statistics I pulled. And this kind of gives you a background on female sports of, the overall percentage of athletes who go from playing high school sports to playing NCAA sports. So this information is NCAA based, but you can see the percentage. So I'll just use the top one for an example. Basketball, women's basketball. So in high school, if you have 429,000 athletes participating, 16,000 NCAA participants. So you're talking about a conversion of high school to NCAA. You're only talking about almost 4%. So of that percentage, 1%, 1.2% play Division I, 1.1% play Division II, and then 1.6% play Division III. So you can see the breakdown of the different sports and women. One that's noticeable is ice hockey, women's ice hockey. You do see a large percentage of girls, and I think the percentage is large because there's not a large percentage of girls who play ice hockey. But there is a big translation between playing in high school and playing in college. And then obviously at the Division III level, you see more of a jump with a 14% participation from high school to NCAA. So that's just some interesting statistics for women's athletics in general. This slide talks about male athletics in the conversion from playing high school to playing college. So you can see the largest category that we have on this list is football, where they have over a million participants. And at the NCAA level, there's about a little over 73,000 participants, which equates to about a 6.8% high school to NCAA percentage of kids who play. And then that obviously drops when you talk about high school to Division I, which is 2.6. To Division II, 1.8, and then to Division III, which is 2.4, a little bit higher. But you can get an idea of the percentages of kids who play in high school to the percentage of kids who play in the NCAA overall. 1, 2, and 3, levels 1, 2, and 3 are not very high comparative to how many play in high school. So this just gives you an idea of that conversion. So this slide gives you a little bit more information about scholarship limits per school based off the sport. And it also lets you can kind of see where those scholarships lie. And obviously different institutions have different, amount of scholarships they offer each year, but this is the limitation that they have per school, per sport. So, just using the top one there, from a Division I basketball standpoint, for women's varsity sports at the NCAA level, you're talking 15 scholarships at the Division I level per team, per school. You're talking 10 at the NCAA Division II, and then you're talking 0 or any in Division III or NAI, and then you can have up to 15 at the junior college level. So, but if you look at the difference there, now you'll look at NAIA Division I, you can see 11 scholarships for basketball at the NAIA level, and then you'll see 6 at the NAIA Division II level, which is quite interesting. And then you can see, as you can see, the biggest thing to look at is that Division III level where there is no scholarships. So you can still get some financial packages that give you money for academics and things like that, service and so forth. But there are no athletic scholarships at the Division III level. And as you can see at the NAI, there's a few sports that have them. Mainly soccer, softball, track and field are big ones, and obviously basketball. And then obviously you can see at the junior college level for women's sports, basketball is a big one, lacrosse, soccer, softball, and track and field and volleyball. Those are the biggest ones that we have. And here's the men's numbers. Same thing, scholarship limit per school. So you can see at the NCAA level, the big one obviously is football, where they have 85. And then we have football at the FCS level, which is 63. And then in other divisions, so if they're Division II, they can only have 36 full scholarships. And then NAI would have 24, and then JUCO would have 85. So you can see where they have, there's a difference between sports. Obviously, look at that Division III comparison. Again, there is nothing in Division III for scholarships on the men's side. But again, there's some sports that have quite a few. As you can see, NAI for football, there's 24, and JUCO quite a bit. And then you'll see some of the smaller sports. You'll see wrestling, you'll see triathlon, no scholarships across the board in that, but you'll see swimming, tennis, skiing, you see rifling at the NCAA level, which is also an Olympic sport, and then things like gymnastics and ice hockey. So that gives you an idea of the sports or scholarship limits per school in the NCAA for men's sport. So this is another one of those slides where I want to give you some reality, some averages, some things that numbers thrown out there that you can kind of compare to what you've heard. But scholarships by the numbers, obviously in-state, the average cost per year is about $7,600. Out of state, the average cost is about $19,000. If you go to a private school, your average cost per year is going to be about $27,000, and then the average scholarship covers about $8,700. So it just depends. Yes, you can go to a Division I school and get a full scholarship and not have to pay anything. But a lot of times, depending on where you go, that's not the case. And then the biggest thing is 90% of scholarships are outside of Division I athletics. So that's meaning Division II, Division III, NAIA, and JUCO. So there's a lot of scholarships out there. And another statistic to look at, only 2% of high school athletes will earn an athletic scholarship. So, you can go play college athletics at Division III level. It doesn't mean you earn an academic scholarship, athletic scholarship, but it does mean that you're competing in athletics at the NCAA level. And then $1.5 billion available in athletic scholarship money each year throughout institutions, and then $19 billion in scholarship money available outside of athletics. So there's a lot of other money out there besides athletic money. A lot of schools will offer you academic money if your academics are high, and other types of scholarships that they will suggest that you apply for based off of need. So I wanted to also give you, now that you've seen some of the statistics, I kind of wanted to give you some kind of the recruiting rules that college coaches have to follow in the NCAA. And each sport kind of has its own set of rules, and you really, whatever sport that you're trying to play at the collegiate level, make sure you learn the recruiting rules, because that will help you, down the road. So just so you know, freshman and sophomore year, you're allowed unofficial visits, and you're allowed to take up to 3 complimentary tickets to a sporting event. And you can only talk to a college coach on his or her campus. So if they invited you, let's say you were playing softball, and they invited you to come see a game. Like, you could go and see a game, and they could talk to you while they're on your campus, but they can't talk to you off campus. Otherwise, that would be a violation. After September 1st, a coach may contact you, but only off campus, only off their campus. And they're only allowed 1 phone call to you per week. They're not allowed to call you more than once per week. And then obviously your senior year, once you're being recruited, you get 5 official visits and 1 per campus. So you can't do you can't do more than 1 official visit to the same school. And then you have a 2 days maximum you can be on campus. And then those schools can't be within a 30-mile radius of each other. So if you're in an area where there's two major colleges close to each other, you would really have to pick between one of the two to visit. So that's just a few of the just kind of minor recruiting rules that coaches have to follow that are trying to recruit athletes. So, like all rules, there's ways that college coaches get around it, and this is just something that they do, and it's kind of a known way to additionally recruit athletes in high school. So the way college coaches tend to do is they'll call your high school coach. Or if you have a really strong club team, they'll reach out to your club team coach. And then obviously if you're making an unofficial visit, they'll talk to the coach on campus. They'll come talk to you on campus. If they know you're on campus, they'll talk to you as much as they can while you're on campus. And then if you're going to a camp that they're attending, they can talk. They'll talk with a coach at a camp. They'll talk with you at a camp. They can talk, different things like that. So anytime they can get your coach on campus to talk about you, they'll do that. And anytime they're around any of your coaches anywhere, they'll try to talk to them about you and try to get more recruiting information on you that way. So that kind of wraps up the presentation. Again, just wanted to remind you of a few of the websites that you can visit for more information or to register for the clearinghouse if you're at that point or thinking about doing it or just researching more information on them. The first one's ncaa.org. The next one is nai.org. And then the final one for junior colleges is njacc.org. And then after this presentation is over, we will take some questions. Just wanted to say thank you for your time and listening to the presentation. Again, my name is Matthew Wicks. I'm the County Athletic Director for Pasco County Schools. And here's if you have any additional information or need additional information or have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is mwicks@pasco.k12.fl.us, and my office phone number is 813-794-2755. Thank you so much.